Welcome to the first episode of the No Bull podcast, where we bring you an analysis of what should, could, and does happen across the NBA. I'm joined as always by my friend through the webcam, Phil Sweig. Let's go.
Nolan, good to see you. Good to see you.
Good to see you too, buddy. All right, let's get into our Bulls segment of this podcast. We are very, very excited to be Bulls fans at this point in time. 15-8.
Absolutely.
Big game against Brooklyn tonight. Phil, what do you expect?
Oh, yeah. So, I mean, the first meeting that we had with them went a lot better than I thought it would have.
Yep.
I mean, it definitely, going into a team that has such high expectations, the Bulls, and then, playing a team like the Nets who showed that they could do it last season, even shorthanded without Kyrie. They're still number one in the East right now. They're playing ball. So it's definitely exciting. I saw on Twitter, Kevin Durant said tonight's Chicago Bulls versus Brooklyn Nets is going to be an intense game. He called the Bulls a contender. So someone as high profile as Kevin Durant, face of a league type of player, calling our team, who, for the past several years has been the most bottom of the barrel, a contender. That, I mean, it's going to be intense. I think it's going to be a really fun game to watch. I'm excited.
Me too. I'm super pumped. And the thing that I'm really excited about is that we're going to see the return of Vooch and how he plays against a team that is very, very talented like Brooklyn. We have seen the return of Vooch. It is upon us. Averaging 28.5 over the last two games, getting hot early and staying ready. Billy Donovan is coming out the gate and giving him the ball and letting him, whether it's in the post where he can pull up and get a good 15-foot jumper and use his size, whether it's a pick and pop where Zach is able to attack, DeMar is able to attack, they're able to just flip it back, and there he is just all alone on the three-point line. Getting him going early is so important to this team because especially how we've played at the very beginning of the year, like DeMar and Zach, everyone knows are the two guys we're going through. If Vooch gets hot early, and if he can be a reliable scoring option through the rest of the game, and then
late game, second half, he becomes an asset. Mm-hmm. Like we saw it in the game where he was shooting lights out from three. That was his first game back, and he 6 for 6 from three. And I mean, it starts like you said, first quarter, run the offense through him, feed him the ball, let him get comfortable, because guys like DeMar, guys like Zoe, when they get guys like Levine, once they're hot, I mean, they can go, it's the flip of a switch. But someone like Vooch, who at the first half of the season so far this season has been struggling, like you said, definitely starting the fire early and keeping it going through the game is going to be huge. Absolutely.
Yeah. The one thing that I'm real interested in is how these, because it's a big four. I hate when people call it a big three because they say it's either, when Vooch was out, they were saying Lonzo and DeMar and Zach. And then now that Vooch is back, they're like the big three, Vooch, DeMar, and Zach. Like it's a big four. All four of those guys have to be going. And if Zoe isn't making his shots, if he's not able to attack, if he's not able to facilitate, because that's what he does. He's just a smart basketball player who knows how to facilitate.
Absolutely.
Which is nice. Not doing that, then we're at a disadvantage. So going forward, getting all of those four pieces to play together seamlessly, that's the thing that Billy Donovan's trying to figure out before playing.
That's going to be huge. And it's good to see, too, like we saw last game, Lonzo, it was just not going for him. Those corner threes, it was like 5 or 6 in a row, not going. But it's good to have a guy who's a pure point guard who can still do point guard things. The shots aren't falling. He's still going to play the point guard position. Exactly. So it's still good to see that, even if we can't, fall back on him. Like you said, we have 3 other guys, and there's guys coming off the bench that are going to help facilitate too. So just overall, I definitely agree. That whole big three definitely is, I mean, it's like a big fam, the whole roster. Let's get them all in there.
Yeah, seriously. And we eventually we'll have a whole segment about the Bulls bench because we talk about
that's going to happen
all the time. So before we get too much into the Bulls hype, I think it is fair as good Bulls fans to get into some of the bad losses that we have seen over the last few weeks.
Yeah.
We think maybe we've learned from them what they showed us that kind of made us a little nervous. and some of those
Yeah.
things. So you and I have talked a lot about the Blazers game and about how that comeback really set a precedent for, and
Yeah.
it allowed us to say, hey, you know what? Like, we're not going to get beat like that again. And I'm sure
Yeah.
that's the conversation that Billy had in that locker room.
Yeah. 100%. I mean, obviously, we were shorthanded, losing Patrick Williams too. Several games before that, and then not having Vooch for that little stretch. That Blazers game where it looked like it was a definitive. I mean, we were up, over 20
Yeah,
points,
it was over.
and it seemed like it was going to be a lock. Throw in the third string,
Yep.
and then they just fought back, and it was
Mm-hmm.
such a flashback. It was that the last couple of years where we've seen, that like garbage time Bulls team somehow carry a 15-point lead into the second half, and then third quarter just drop the ball completely and just lose the game, a game that should have been won.
Mm-hmm.
So definitely flashbacks there. And then the other two games that were definitely should have been wins, Pacers and Rockets. I mean, that Pacers game, I didn't watch either of those two. I watched the Blazers game, and I really wish I hadn't because that one really stung.
It hurt.
But the Pacers and the Rockets game, I remember, refreshing the score for for that Pacers game, and I was like, oh my God, like how we just couldn't get, there was no offense going, and it's, we're still without Vooch.
We just could not put the ball in the basket.
And you know what? And there's going to be nights like that. I mean, no team is perfect. We see this throughout the league, whether it's one game or a stretch of a couple games where teams are kind of like struggling to find that rhythm again. I mean, we were coming off of, like a hard West Coast swing, coming back to play teams that should have been easy wins. There's got to be some fatigue that's involved in that too. And then the Rockets, I mean, that really shouldn't have been a loss either. But I mean, hey, they have the longest active streak in the NBA right now. Their last 5 games, won in a row. After the Suns lost, so they have the longest active streak, which is, I mean, it says something. But
and I mean, it was after they played us.
We won.
After they beat us, they kind of got their offense together. And we've talked about this Houston team, and I mean, what they started like 1-12 or 1-13 or something like that.
They're better than that.
They're better than that. Jalen Green is a very, very talented rookie. I love Christian Wood. Free my man Christian Wood. I feel so bad.
Oh my God! The last 3 games, I saw it on StatMuse. He's been going off. He's been averaging like a double, like 20-some points and like 15 rebounds, just ridiculous, and like 3.5 blocks per game. He's been going off, and he definitely. I think that team has, some of those pieces there, whether they piece the rest of it together or, just clean slate wipe and start over. We'll see what the future holds for them. But those are definitely games against teams that I think the Bulls should have won. In terms of, looking towards the future, locking down, being a second half team, because we even last season, the seasons before, we always came out strong. If Levine's feeling hot in the first half, we can be up a couple points, even double digits sometimes. And then if there's no one else to carry that torch through the rest of the game, Levine can't play 40 minutes of basketball, and he doesn't have to anymore. So that's why this team shouldn't be doing things. If we lose a game over, a basket or two, I'm okay with that. Those are hard-fought games. Those are, tooth and nail, fight to the end type of games. That's absolutely fine. You come back, you win the next one. But games where we're up significantly and there's, a 30, 40-point swing within a quarter, I mean, that's insane. That shouldn't be happening.
Yeah. And I mean, that's kind of what we've said, I mean, there's some lessons to learn here with everything, and as we always say, basketball, I mean, it's game of runs. That's how it works.
Game of runs. Yes,
it's
sir.
It's a game of runs. And when you and Joe are texting and you guys are being nervous, fellas, game of runs, all caps. Game of runs.
always we just need the run to go the right way. Because I remember there was one game, I forget what, but you were, hey, it's a game of runs. It was when we were playing New York, the last Knick game, and we were up like 20. There's that picture of Stephen A. Smith, and the score is like 59-39. Oh, I love it.
That's such a great picture.
It ended up being a close game. They came back third quarter. Evan Fournier, of course, Mr. French guy, got to be shooting the lights out. I mean, they showed, and that's the cool thing about that Knick team too. They've shown that they can do it like like that. You know what I mean? So and that's one of the things that makes him dangerous. So definitely, um, yeah. But I mean, it's definitely in terms of lessons, finishing strong. That's got to be the thing that kind of pulls him through. And then, like you said too, we've talked about it before, like closing games, going to early in the season. I remember first like 5 games, and it was the last like 5 minutes of those games, and the ball was in DeMar's hands the entire time. There's a reason he leads the league in fourth quarter scoring. It's because he gets it done.
That's right.
And this team is so lucky to have him, but they're also not like overly reliant to
Exactly.
the point where it's always got to be him. Levine can take those shots. Zoe can take those shots. Vooch, now that he's getting back into a groove, he can be a guy that we turn to on the
Exactly.
pick and pop. It's going to be, yeah, definitely something to look forward to seeing.
Definitely. And then the other thing that I do want to say before we get into our next segment is the fact that, and you and I also talked about this, the fact that Io was in the game until 6 minutes to go in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
Billy
Oh, yeah.
he left him in there. He trusted
Yeah.
him to make the right plays, to make the right reads, to not be sloppy with the basketball, not to commit turnovers, not to, make mistakes on defense as a rookie. And I mean, he kept him in until I think it was under 6 minutes that he finally put Caruso back in the game for him. And I was shocked by that and so impressed and happy about it.
I remember we were texting. It was like the timeout that they took, and I saw Caruso at the scorer's table. I was like, okay, thank God, because they were coming and they were getting on their run, and I was like, no. Put that man in. There's 5 Carusos out there at all times. Oh my God. Yeah, so definitely, I definitely agree. And seeing, I think in the fourth quarter too, I remember looking at it and it was like 8 minutes left in the fourth quarter. And like we were without Levine and DeRozan on the floor. I think I don't even remember what the 5 out there were for us. But I was like, yo, this Knick team is going on a run. Billy, call a timeout, put these guys in.
Seriously.
But you know what? Like making those guys tough it out, making those guys play hardball, that's what's going to grow this team. That's good. That's what separates us, I feel like, and separates Billy Donovan as a coach. Any coach can just go, throw our starting 5 back in and close the game out.
For sure.
It takes a coach that's confident in his guys and who knows how he's leading this team to put in guys that, coming off the bench for these late stretches in the game, especially when it's close. If it's a blowout, whatever, put the garbage time team in. Let Alize Johnson do windmills. I don't care. Let him have it.
Yeah,
but
doesn't matter.
At that, to see that, especially against a tough Knick team where they fought back and we saw that they could do it. Definitely, it shows how much faith they put in that team.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so this will take us into our next segment. So Phil and I are going to discuss 2 teams that we love. And then we are also going to discuss 2 teams that have been underwhelming to us so far. So I'll get into my first team. I'll let you do your first team. Then I'll do our
Okay, cool. Yeah, I was going to say, are we switching off? We'll do 1 and 1. Okay, cool. I like that idea.
We'll do 1 and 1. So my first team that I love is a team that we just beat a few days ago, the New York Knicks. So I was very high on these guys last season. That stretch, do you remember? I think it was like a 12 or 13 game stretch where they covered the spread every game in a row.
Did they really? I don't remember that because I wasn't like huge into that before. I really started following them in the playoffs, and that's when they had that series with Atlanta.
Oh,
that was like, yo, yes, I absolutely agree. I love this Knick team.
Yeah, that series was a blast. But ever since last season, I really loved these guys, and one thing that I think is really really interesting, and it happens to a lot of players across the league. Players who were traded elsewhere for other pieces, who turn out being successful in another place than they weren't before. So like Julius Randle, for example, he was in LA. He was a stud in LA. He was playing well, but he needed to be the guy. He needed to be in a new place, and he probably needed a little bit of a different coach. So the reason I love this Knick team is because I love these players. I love, Julius Randle. Emmanuel Quickly, I think, plays so hard, and he's such a good shooter. He attacks the basket. Love him. And of course, as a Bulls fan, how can you not love D-Rose and Taj on the same team with Tibbs?
Yes, sir.
And I love Tibbs' coaching style. He gets he's very intense and very defense-oriented, very effort style coaching. His team's going to go out and play hard.
100%.
The only thing that I don't like about the Knicks right now is the fact that Kemba is kind of MIA, and they're not really sure what's going on there.
So I was actually going to ask you about that. So I remember seeing that on Twitter, and I don't know what happened, if it's effort related or if Tibbs, there was I forget what game it was, but there was a game where he took out all the starters with like 9 minutes left in the game and that's it. They all sat Julius Randle, everyone was on the bench. So I'm curious to know if that had anything to do with the whole Kemba thing. He's out of the rotation entirely.
Mm-hmm.
When I read that, I didn't fully understand that meant that he wasn't suiting up for games.
No.
He wasn't coming in at all.
Mm-mm.
So when he was sitting on the bench against the Bulls, I was like, yo, like, and that's crazy to put, to think about. Obviously they're giving Alec Burks a shot, which is great. I mean, he's a young guard. They want to develop him. I'm assuming they have to have some kind of faith in him to be able to do that.
And he plays hard too. I like him.
Oh yeah, 100%. And I mean, when he starts knocking down shots too, he's definitely one of those guys you kick to in the corner.
For sure.
But yeah, the whole Kemba thing, I was like, wow, like that's kind of in. And they went out and got him. You know what I mean? It wasn't like, so yeah, definitely interesting to see how that team. They're still doing it. I mean, they're still doing something.
Yeah, for sure. To go out and pay that guy and then sit him, it's very It's a very weird concept. It's a weird concept to say the least.
100%.
Yeah.
Okay. Did you have anything else on the Knicks, or are we going?
No.
Okay.
Now you're
perfect. Up. So for the first team, I picked the Cleveland Cavaliers.
Shout out Joseph.
Shout out Joseph. Shout out Evan Mobley. And the reason behind it was I remember last season, and it was kind of a funky season. It was a shortened season because of COVID and everything. I remember watching the Cavs early last season. Through their first 10 games, they were second or third, I feel like, in the East. And I was telling my buddy Robert, I was like, yo, this team is back. Cavs are back. Send Cavs 100%. They're definitely in the playoffs. Obviously, it didn't happen, but it's been fun to watch them since last year grow into the team that they are now. They just beat the Wizards. I think it was last night or 2 nights ago, whatever the most recent game was. They beat the Wizards, which the Wizards, we were talking about it, we were laughing about it. Maybe fraud team, maybe not fraud team. They're looking good.
I don't think so.
Harrell is having a career season. KCP, Kuzma, they're all meshing and playing well out there. Yeah. I wish them all the best. But
I know. I'm off the train of that. Washington's a fraudulent team. They are proving that they are not.
They're holding. I think they're fourth right now, right behind the Heat, and then us, and then it's the Nets. So yeah, I mean they're definitely. I mean, if they keep playing like this, they're locked 4th, 5th seed for sure. Yeah, so we'll see about that. Back to the Cavs. They just beat the Wizards. It was a close game, but obviously win's a win. Mm-hmm. They're on a 4-game win streak right now, so one shy of the highest win streak in the league actively. Mm-hmm. Just kind of going back to, last season, they ended up finishing 13th, which, now that we have the new playing game style and everything, they're out of reach for that. They're 6th right now. So, I mean, a lot of teams, the whole 8th, 1st through 8th right now is insanely close. If you look at the standings, it's crazy how close these teams are. And I understand it's still early in the season, but I mean, it's over a quarter of the way there. We're, blink of an eye, All-Star break comes through, and we're going to the playoffs. So definitely interesting to see whether they'll hold on to that 6th spot, if they kind of drop, if they pick it up, who knows? So that's they've been a fun team to watch. Larry Markkinen and Denzel Valentine, removed, but definitely cool to see a team that's been struggling for so many years kind of pick things back up. So, and I love freaking Jared Allen. He's been balling out too. So definitely shout out Jared Allen.
He plays hard, and it's it's players like that play hard that you just love to watch. Mm-hmm. It's just so much fun. So to take it into my second team. So my second team that I'm love and that I'm really excited about right now is the Minnesota Timberwolves. So they are 11-12 on the season. So they're below 500.
Almost there.
I mean, what did you expect from the Timberwolves this season? I mean, I didn't expect much of anything.
Yeah, 100%. So, I mean, yeah.
Cat coming out. Cat's averaging 24 a game, 9 rebounds. Ant Edwards is averaging 4 assists, 6 rebounds, and 25 points. And, D'Lo is coming off and scoring 20 a game too with around 7 assists. So, I mean, they have some pieces. They have some guys. Carl Anthony Towns, Ant Edwards, and D'Lo. Like those 3 guys are talented enough to be able to bring your team some wins. So I think
that's a solid core. 100%.
And plus they have Pat Bev now, who they traded for.
Mm-hmm.
And so they have a couple other pieces.
I'm not a huge fan of Pat Bev.
You're not a Pat Bev guy?
The whole barking thing, man, I'm definitely not in love with him, but I mean, I don't doubt that he brings kind of like that defensive edge to that team.
For sure. He brings that.
Yeah, I mean, they're very cool. Yeah, like you said, I mean, they're like a piece or two away from, being at least an above 500 team. I mean, they're not necessarily going for a championship run right now.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it definitely, I can definitely see that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, their expectations were low for this season. I mean, and they're coming out and playing well, and they've had some good wins against some teams. I mean, Carl Anthony Towns has come out and played really, really well. I've only watched them, I think, twice, but I mean, the 2 times I watched them, I mean, Anthony Edwards is so much fun to watch. He has so much energy.
He's a highlight reel. Oh,
he really is. He's a fun player to watch. So, Phil, take it into your second team, buddy.
Definitely. Second team in terms of who has been outperforming, or I guess, has been fun to watch. I think the Hornets are definitely an exciting team to watch. We just played them. I think it was on Monday, and that was a good game. Seeing the Ball brothers play against each other, that was exciting. They're a fun team to watch against teams that will, struggle defensively. They light it up. I mean, they're doing windmill dunks and just. They're so fun to watch. They've got guys that can shoot the ball. They play good defense. We saw how that zone gave Chicago some trouble. I mean, if they can continue to improve on that, that's going to be a great team, to watch and develop. They're a young team. Just to kind of put it in some context, they finished 10th last season, so I think that's still they were in the play-in games. They obviously didn't get too far. But they're 7th now, right behind that Cavs team this year. That's 6th. So kind of seeing these younger, just more exciting teams, more energetic teams. It doesn't always have to be superstar names. Obviously they've got some Gordon Hayward, LaMelo Ball, Mason Plumlee's on that team. Kelly Oubre. There's guys, but they're not necessarily max contract guys. And to see a team like that kind of put it together, I think they're a fun team to watch, and I think they're going to continue to grow. And Charlotte might become a bigger market than they're ready for. So definitely a cool team to look out for this season.
Yeah, they honestly might. Yeah, and they have the second best announcers in the league behind Stacey King, of course. But I love the energy of their announcers. That guy yells.
He's just out of his chair every time, just screaming his head off. And sometimes it's way too much, but sometimes he gets it right. Oh my God, so good. Yeah, it's definitely it's a hoot watching those games. It's absolutely a hoot.
Yeah. So anyway, so now we'll take it into 2 teams that have been kind of underwhelming so far. Teams that we kind of expected a little more out of and haven't really seen as much production as we've been hoping for. So my first team is the Boston Celtics. So I went into the season, thinking that they had some, obviously some solid pieces: Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, Marcus Smart. A lot of these guys can.
They got a Horford bag.
Really, really good.
Yeah.
100%. They're good leaders and they know how to play the game. And I thought they would be able to come in this year. I didn't think they'd be a top 4 seed. I didn't think that. But, with those 2 superstars, I thought they'd at least, be 7, 8, 6, somewhere in that ballpark. But right now they can't score. And that is their biggest problem. And I think a lot of this comes back to, did you see the report from Marcus Smart a couple weeks ago? So he came out in a post-game interview and said, hey, you know what? Jason and Jaylen don't want to pass the ball. And if we want to win games, they're going to have to pass the ball. And that was about 2-3 weeks ago. And of course, it's good to see an older guy giving leadership to his younger players, whatever, blah, 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 because that's what Marcus Smart is in this scenario. But he created this idea where they don't have an identity now. Their identity was
Yeah.
going through Jalen and Jason, and now if they're trying to kind of move around with those pieces and change their playing style and how they're going to work, they lost part of their identity.
Yeah.
So I think moving forward, they're really gonna have to figure out how those pieces work together. And I mean, I think they're gonna have to trade one of them, one or the other. I think Jaylen Brown will be gone within 2 years because
I think so
for
too.
some reason it
Yeah.
just doesn't work.
Yeah. No, I definitely I did see that report where, he was frustrated. And that's the thing too. Some of these reports that you see over the past couple of years where players get a little too comfortable with what they
Yeah.
say to the media. I think that's a locker room thing to say. I think that's something you talk about with your
Mm-hmm.
team in the locker room. You sit down, you have that conversation. You say,
Yeah.
hey, things aren't working. I don't like what's happening. And is Marcus Smart a superstar to be able to, to be calling those shots? Absolutely not. But,
No.
if you sit down for a team meeting and those opinions are vocalized, I'm sure Marcus Smart is the only one that feels that way. There's a way to iron that out and, work through it, work past it, and get better as a team. Whereas, and we saw it, when the Bulls held them to 9 fourth quarter points, and he was saying some things that were stirring the pot too. And, as a
Mm-hmm.
Bulls fan, I love to see it, but I
Yeah.
have been a closet Celtics fan for the past 4 or 5
Yeah.
years. And I love that team. I love Jason Tatum. I love Jaylen Brown. I loved when Terry Rozier was there. I love when Isaiah Thomas was
Yeah.
there. Seeing that team kind of grow over the past couple of years, it's been exciting. But yeah, I definitely agree with you. Someone's got to be held accountable for what the team is going to be doing going forward. Um, and yeah, the whole thing. I think it is going to be Jaylen Brown within the next couple of years. Um, it's just it's rough. It's rough seeing that the team kind of fall apart like that. Especially and they're over. I mean they're 12-11 right now, over
Mm-hmm.
500, but they're in ninth. They're tied with the 76ers who have the same record, but so it's not to say that they couldn't improve late in the season
No, because of course they
and
can.
move into that. And yeah,
Mm-hmm.
they're definitely not dropping to like 13th by any means, but to see, hopefully we see that team chemistry kind of get back and they, start to gel a little better together.
Yeah, because when you think about having, two of the best just pure scorers in the league on your team, and you're coming out and you're barely over 500, I mean,
Yeah.
something's wrong there. Something is very, very wrong there. So,
100%.
and the Celtics, that was your pick as well, right? That was your first team too?
Yeah. Yeah. So that
Yeah.
was,
Okay.
I also talked about them. They were a team who, last year ceiling was high,
Hmm.
expectations were high. They were a solid team. And this season, after, it kind of started, I feel like, after that loss to the Bulls, where Marcus Smart was kind of running his mouth, something's just felt off about that team. Like they don't want to play together. They don't want to, be, doing anything like, basketball related. It's just not looking, they don't look like the same team that they did last year. Obviously, looking back, I'm taking, a look back at last season with the short, 72 game schedule. They finished at 500. I didn't realize. I thought they were a much higher seeded team. They finished at 500, 36 and 36, seventh seed. Um, so, just barely kind of scraping by.
Yeah.
It's
With
it's going to
two
be interesting to
all-stars.
see. Yeah, with two. And that's the kind of thing how people were talking about DeMar and Levine not gelling together as two pure scorers who want to attack the basket, and how are they going to play on the
Hmm.
same team and this and that. That's kind of what we're seeing in
In
Boston.
Boston. Hmm.
Those guys want to. And can you imagine if Terry Rozier was still there? The whole reason he left was because he wanted to be the main
The
guy.
guy.
He saw
Hmm.
early that with Jason, he saw Jason's ceiling. Jason hasn't even reached his full potential. He is still, I think, a year or two away from being at his peak, and it's going to
Hmm.
keep going. Jaylen Brown being the natural scorer he is, Terry Rozier said, "Hey, I know I'm not going to be able to compete these guys. They're not going to give me a contract, and even if they do, I'm not going to want to stick around, and be third in line. Maybe third in line. With Gordon Hayward still was on that team, there was a lot of competition, and now seeing how they're kind of handling that, yeah, it's definitely um, higher expectations than what they're doing now, but only time will tell. We
Yeah,
definitely have there's still 60 games to be played this season, a lot of time, a lot of time.
exactly. A lot of time. Okay, so to get into the second team that I've kind of been, disappointed with, kind of underwhelming thus far is the Atlanta Hawks. And I only say this because the ceiling was so high at the end of the playoffs last year. They were like, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
once we get, we got so many players who are injured. We got Cam Reddish who's injured. Once we get everyone back, we're going to be great. Well, they're 12-10, and
Yeah.
I mean, Trey's shooting 38% from three, 26 a game. Cam Reddish is averaging like 11 and a half a game. John Collins is like 16 and a half. And then I think Bogey is averaging like 11 a game. So I think the big thing is here, these guys, they have to figure out how they need to play together and who needs to do what at what time. So Trey needs to be able to be the guy. And it seems like he is already this year, from the games I've seen, he's the one who's taken over in those big moments, as he should.
Yeah.
But
100%.
I really think that this is a team that has a high ceiling and maybe a team that, is kind of struggling at the beginning of the season and will pick it up more as the season goes on. Because I love this team. I love Nate McMillan. I love the way they're coached. I love how they play. Such a high energy team that's just fun to watch.
Mm-hmm.
I think John
Yeah.
Collins is one of the most fun, like high flying power forwards that we have in the league today. Like he is a jumper. And he
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
loves to be above the rim. And I think that's so exciting to watch, especially with Trey's passing ability. So I think this is a team, the Celtics, I would say, is a team, that I wouldn't say it's super likely that they pick it up and become a contender, but the Hawks, I could totally see them, kind of picking it up, putting the pieces together, saying, hey,
Yeah.
you know what, we know our identity now. We know who does what. We know what needs to be done and can really become a big-time contender in the East.
Yeah, kind of like that Wizards team. I think it was last year that they went on like a late run in the season and
Yeah.
they pulled it through. They pulled it together. I think definitely, and I think like you said, this team has a lot of talent. It's just about putting it to work. Like you said, I mean, they definitely started off a little rocky, and the ceiling was so high after that series with New York.
And
Everyone
you know
was
what?
so excited for.
They wouldn't even be in this segment if it weren't for that series in New York. Like
Yeah.
it was
Oh,
just the
100%.
fact that the hype was so high and they
Yeah.
just they just haven't reached it yet. And
Yeah.
I think they'll get there. I really do.
I think so too.
They're
Yeah, I mean,
talented.
starting, kind of just looking back here, November 12th, they were 4-9. I mean, definitely they've gone on. They're 12-11 now. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, it's
So
definitely. I
won 8
think
of their last 10. I
yeah,
mean, that's
which I
impressive.
mean, it's huge. That's a great push. That's a great start. It looks like it's going to be, hopefully they're kind of trending towards that. I mean, they went on a huge win streak. I'm actually looking back here. Yeah, they won like 5 or 6 in a row before losing to New York, just like a week or two ago. So yeah, I think you're absolutely right. So far, haven't seen a whole lot out of them, but I think it's another team where they'll kind of pick it up, and hopefully you want to see them do well because I mean it's good for the league. It's fun to watch.
Absolutely. No, it really is. And
Yeah,
I've been looking forward to your second team since I saw you wrote it down.
yeah.
So
Oh yeah.
let's do it.
So yeah, my second team. We talked about the Celtics first. My second team. I wanted to kind of pick one from the East and one from the West just to see, just to do kind of like a conference wise comparison. My team in the West, looking through it, uh, is the Lakers. I mean,
Yeah.
they are garbage right now. They are hot garbage. They're getting a lot of heat, which I think is absolutely well deserved. The amount of money that they spent this past off season on, obviously they had LeBron, they had AD, bringing Melo, bringing Westbrook, getting rid of literally their entire core and essentially rebuilding
Yeah.
to open up a retirement home. To be 12-12 right now, kind of rough. Kind of rough. I mean, we're seeing, LeBron has been out. I think earlier in the season it was injury related, and this past couple of games it was COVID related.
Yeah.
So, he's missed more games this season than I feel like he has in the last couple. Obviously he's a huge competitor, takes really good care of his body, hates injuries, and is not super injury prone as a player. So seeing him kind of sit out these past couple of games, such a stretch this season, it's, that definitely has the impact. Anthony Davis shooting absolutely horrendous this season from three. He's like on pace to be shooting the worst of all time from three, like minimum certain amount of attempts. I remember seeing it on StatMuse. I was like, if this actually happens, I will not believe it. Seeing Carmelo Anthony, who is looking good. Melo is like the one. Melo and like THT and like maybe Malik Monk, like those are guys that like are consistently putting up decent numbers.
Yeah.
And I mean, Melo's got like maybe a year or two left. I mean, he is literally on his last legs. Seeing how this team, the hype around it. I'm not even going to get into Westbrook because you know how I feel about Westbrook. He's not doing it. He's not doing it. It's
Well,
I don't. How many games have we seen this team actually play together where they're all on the court at the same time? And
not very many. Not very many.
not
And
very
my
many.
thing,
And it's
yeah, my
go
thing
ahead.
about Westbrook, and I've always said this about him, and because there's big time Westbrook haters, people who come out and they're like, oh, the triple doubles, whatever, blah blah blah. People
Yeah,
get really really mad about it, and
yeah,
I'm not one of those guys. I'm never gonna go crazy on a player and talk about I hate them, blah blah blah. But the one thing I will say is the things that he does aren't necessarily the things that contribute directly to winning. So
yeah, 100%.
a lot of those rebounds, because his thing is the triple double. So his big guys
Yeah,
are blocking out, and he's flying down the lane to get those boards. Okay, that's fine and dandy, great, heavy rebounds. You know what Steph Curry's doing? He's letting Draymond grab that board. He's leaking out, getting down the floor to score on offense. And
exactly.
I just don't think that necessarily a lot of the things that he's doing, yeah, they're great. They look great on the stat line. It's
Yeah.
it's cool to see. It's interesting. It's entertaining, but it doesn't
Mm-hmm.
necessarily lead to winning basketball games.
100%. Yeah, and that's the thing. I feel like people love to defend him and say he's, generational player and things like that. And he absolutely is. No one's
Yeah.
taking that away from him, but is he like a winning player? I wouldn't say so. I mean, he had, that whole time with the Thunder, the only time he really got far was when he had someone with him at the beginning when that was, him, Katie and Harden,
Mm-hmm.
when, he had Paul George, when he had Melo in OKC for
Mm-hmm.
a little bit, that all it always looked good when he had someone else around him
Mm-hmm.
because that other person would play and show. I mean, Paul George when he was with OKC, he was doing well. That was
Really good.
he was young. He was doing it. I mean, it looked really good. You're absolutely right. The things that he does, how is that contributing? Yeah, great. A point guard that gets 12 rebounds a game. How,
Cool.
how is that helping your team win? You lose in overtime to the Kings, who I forget are even a team in this league. I don't remember the Kings being a team. And he's getting, yeah, great, average a triple double. Do that all you want. And then same thing
Mm-hmm.
with the Wizards. The Wizards were like a
Yeah.
garbage team. That was when John Wall was still like injured. They had to move past that. But and seeing like early last season when it was like the whole between him and Bradley Beal, how are they going to play together? Bradley Beal obviously being a veteran guard who knows what he's doing,
Mm-hmm.
coming in to have like a guy like Westbrook, stat pad, quote unquote, and go for, it's just definitely I feel like he's never gotten into that groove, like you're saying, of playing winning basketball, of doing things that help the team, of doing things that are
Yeah.
outside of just him filling the box score.
Yeah.
Um,
Exactly. And the other thing
I
is
mean, it's,
he's never developed a 3-point shot. And the
yeah,
league has changed. You could get away with it, maybe even 5 years ago, when he
mm-hmm.
was still in OKC,
Oh,
he could get
100%.
by with not having a 3-point shot. Not
100%.
anymore. Not
No.
anymore. He can't. He needs to
Yeah.
develop a
I mean, he's
3-point
got
shot.
guys that are a foot taller than him that are shooting better from three. I mean, it's crazy that isn't, and it's one thing if he was a dominant, if he, like a DeMar DeRozan, where you
Yeah.
create your shots 18, 20 feet outside that's absolutely fine. But he's pulling
Yep.
30 footers that are, not even making contact with the rim, and no one wants to call him on it. It's just it's frustrating. Yeah, you're absolutely right. So just a lot of pieces there contributing. And obviously, after so far in the season, and I think by the end of the season, this Laker team is going to be kicking themselves for not keeping Caruso, for not keeping that bald-headed, gorgeous man on their team. Paid a man. He would have taken a pay cut. They're stupid. They're underwhelming. I don't even want to talk about him anymore. Get him out of here.
Get him out of here. Get him out of here. Okay, let's take it to the 3-word game. So what we're going to do is with this section, we each pick 2 teams. And then we are going to give 3 words that describe either how they've been playing lately, what we expect of them moving forward, just 3 words to describe these 2 teams. So I'll go first with my first team. My first team is the Phoenix Suns. I'm going to use the 3 words better than expected ? Because why were we not expecting this team to come out and do what they're doing so far this season? I don't understand that, because they just played in the NBA Finals and played Milwaukee to a really competitive series. And Milwaukee played really, really well. The Suns played really, really well. But no one ever wants to talk about them. You never see them on SportsCenter.
Yeah.
You never see them on social media. You never see people talking about the Suns. So people are coming out and saying all this stuff about how the Suns are playing so well. Well, we should have expected them to come out and play so well, because they just played in the NBA Finals last year.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, it's not like they lost. They didn't trade away their team. No. They're not dealing with injuries right now. Obviously, with Devin Booker, now it's, and I think the last game was Devin Booker and Mikal Bridges, I think, was out. If I'm not mistaken. So, and it took them winning 18 games in a row to finally be like, can someone please talk about us, please?
Literally.
It was, you're 100% right. I mean, I don't know, obviously it's different when you see teams go through a rebuild phase where they're, a playoff contending team, and then, players want to leave because they don't see a future and everything kind of disintegrates. Then, obviously you forget about that team. Phoenix is not that team. Phoenix is, if not the complete opposite of that team. Yeah, you're 100% right. We should. The expectations are there. I feel like just no one talks about it. No one emphasizes what this team can really do.
Yeah. Okay. So Phil, take it into your first team.
So my first team, I put the Dallas Mavericks, and my 3 words was they drafted who?
They drafted who?
They drafted who? So we're seeing, the Dallas Mavericks right now, just to kind of give it an idea, they are, one of those teams that I feel like are kind of like in the same boat almost as like a Clipper team, just without, or not the Clippers, I'm sorry, the Celtics, just without like the drama, where they're kind of stagnant. The ceiling is high for them. There's big expectations, but they're just kind of, swept under the rug. Haven't seen a whole lot of excitement out of them this season. But Kristaps Porzingis is playing, career highest in his career basketball, statistically at least. I saw on StatMuse they posted best basketball of his career, 7 straight 20-point games. That is the longest streak of his career. They did go 3-4 in that stretch out of those 7 games, but they did play tough teams. They played the Suns twice, who obviously were on a tear. They played the Clippers twice, which they won one of the games. They split with the Clippers. And they played the Bulls, which obviously we locked them down.
Yeah. Those are really just seeing that he scored over 20 against.
Absolutely. Yeah, he was on a tear. So seeing him kind of develop, and everyone was like, "Oh, he's a unicorn. Oh, he's going to change the game, this and that." Seeing him, people were saying, he's got like the size and potential to be like a Kevin Durant type player. We're not seeing that out of him. He's been in the league for a couple of years now, and it's very, obviously he was dealing with injury and switching teams and this and that. So hopefully seeing him kind of develop into that player that I think people want him to be, or at least people in Dallas want him to be, it's going to be fun to see that, playing with an elite player like Luka as well. Good players make other players good around them. So I think that, only time will tell, but I think that they've got a promising, couple of guys to build around. So that's going to be really cool.
Yeah, definitely. They have a good little core to kind of to build upon, and and the coaching changes off season 2. I mean, all these things are going to eventually work themselves out. And Tingus Pingus playing like crazy.
Pingus. Yeah. Pingus. Hopefully, he keeps doing it like this. He's absolutely gonna have a career season. I think right now his averages are all career highs. So definitely, it's off to a good start.
Good for him. So my second team that I'll talk about is a team that I've already talked about so far in this episode, the Minnesota Timberwolves. So My three words here are one more piece, because I really think that's what they need to. I'm not saying to become a champion to become a championship caliber team. They're not winning a championship if they get one more player. That's not
Yeah.
my point. My point is if they get one more player, they're going to be really hard to stop on some of these nights, because in the NBA it's not necessarily about your stars. It's about the other players that you have around you that carry you through those months of January, February, March, things like that, when your stars get tired. And that's what we've talked about before. That's why we love this bench so much for the Bulls,
Yeah.
is because, they have guys who are coming in and who are going to be able to carry this team in the dog days of January, February, March, when our stars are starting to get tired. So I really just think they need one or two couple more pieces really to make themselves a competitor in the East. And it's going to be really interesting to see how they end up doing that.
Yeah, I definitely agree.
Because
We
Cat
mentioned it
isn't
in the
going
beginning.
anywhere.
Yeah, Cat, Anthony Edwards, and D'Lo, all, like you said, averaging over 20 points a game.
Mm-hmm.
That's a tremendous core.
Mm-hmm.
A piece or two, I think they'll be, like you said, I think they're definitely, not necessarily, championship contenders right away, but definitely going to be a force to deal with in the East. And then, so for my second team, I picked OKC, who, as we all saw, I think it was 2 nights ago, got blown out by 73 points to the Grizzlies with a Grizzlies without John Morant.
You
So
texted
it
that,
was,
and I thought you were lying. I thought you were
yeah,
lying.
you were like, wait, this isn't a typo. Carry on. I was like, yo, this can't be. I remember seeing the Worldwide Wob tweeted a screenshot of the score at halftime, and I was like, damn, that's fucking crazy. Like, are you kidding me? That's an insane deficit. And it's like, we've seen that, and then the other team fights back, and it ends up only being like a 20 or 15-point loss. Nothing crazy.
Exactly.
But I mean, geez, these Grizzlies were pouring it on. I think they ended with like 9 players in double figures. Insane. Yeah. So looping back to the OKC Thunder, they're really, it's just not looking great. They have a lot of good players. I think, SGA obviously being that their guy who they I feel like want to build around. Mm-hmm. They're 6-16 now. 73-point loss is, I mean, someone's got to get fired for that. Someone's leaving, someone's moving, someone's resignation is going to be on someone's desk. After that game, it's definitely a rough one. Just seeing what they do. My 3 words for them: dump draft picks. They have 38 draft picks. I looked this up this morning to make sure it was accurate. 38 draft picks over the next 7 years. You can't,
over 7 years.
Over 7 years, you can't. What are they going to do? Like, how do you do that? You don't do that. I understand they picked them up. They're assets. They're assets that they
that's
eventually
over
can
5
trade
picks
away
a year in a 2-round draft. That's insane.
Yeah, it's absolutely nuts. I think they literally have no less than 4 or 5. I think it's like 5 picks minimum every draft for the next 7 years. It's nuts. It's nuts. Obviously, when these things were happening, I remember, it's such a huge thing during the Paul George moving and everything. A lot of those picks were moving around from so many different teams. And it's just kind of like, what are you going to do? Obviously, it's early in the season, and I kind of expected them to have been tanking for a while. Like, I don't remember them being that good over the past couple of years. And I look back, last year was the first year that they, missed the playoffs in the last 5 years. They've always been a 4, 5, or 6 seed that I feel was just like a very sleeper team. I mean, Westbrook, but it's going to be one of those things where, are they going to use those picks to actually build a team, or are they going to use those assets to, potentially acquire guys that are going to help them kind of revamp this team? I mean, only time will tell, but yeah, that was definitely, I think they had to be talked about after that loss to the Grizzlies. Jeez, that was a performance to say the least.
Yeah, there had to have been a conversation there. And honestly, if I'm the GM of OKC though, I already did it. I already got KD. I got Harden. I
Yeah,
got Westbrook.
yeah.
I did a really good draft. I've had some really good drafts. I've got some really good players. Just build.
Yeah.
Maybe trade a few away if you want to get a couple vets. Maybe trade one of
hmm
those picks away, maybe for an Al Horford or some type of big man or guard veteran who can kind of show these young guys how to play. Because isn't SGA the oldest player on that team, and he's like what, like 30?
I I don't even think he's that old.
Yeah, I think he
I
might
think
be
he is the
29
youngest.
or the
SGA.
oldest.
Yeah,
I mean,
I'm literally gonna look it up because I don't even think he's that old.
yeah, look it up because
And
I'm pretty sure he's the
it's
oldest player
crazy.
on their team.
And you know
So
what? Kind of going back
that's
to
the
what you
one thing they
said
need is vet leadership.
with the GM, Shea is 23 years old.
Okay,
I
and
think
I'm
the
thinking,
average age on that team is like 25 or something. It has
yeah,
to be, or less, because I mean they've got to have some old heads on there. Like they might not be like respected veterans, but they
yeah,
got to have some like garbage time players on there that are in their 30s. But going back
they
to
gotta
that
have some.
GM comment, yeah, I think it's interesting. Obviously they should have some confidence in the way that they pick these players. Like you said, they picked a KD, they picked a Harden, they picked a Westbrook, all generational players, all who played together. But we saw what happened when they played together. At some
Exactly.
point, whose ego is going to outweigh the willingness to sacrifice to help the team win? Clearly, someone like Westbrook, that was never going to happen. Harden developed into, a cherry picking free thrower. KD, I think, is the only player who really, at the end of the day, I mean, he's willing to play with, Kyrie and now Harden again, and they're still having to rely on him. I think KD was the only guy from that generation who really would have stood the test of, will all of you players be able to play together consistently and give things up? With a new generation of players, though, I mean, they could see that. I mean, who's to say that the next Kyrie or the next Harden, KD, and Westbrook that come out of OKC, that they're not willing to change and do things to win together. So yeah, definitely. I mean, that's 38 over 7 years. It's wild. It's absolutely wild. So
It
yeah, I
really
mean, we'll
is.
see. Hopefully, they do have a bright future. They're a cool team to watch. At least they have been over the past couple of years. But yeah, that's about it. That's all I've got for OKC
Yeah.
for now.
Yeah.
I mean, they need a rest for sure.
Yeah. So to close this episode out, Phil, we're excited for Brooklyn tonight. We're looking
Oh yeah.
forward to seeing how the Bulls will match up against this team, and we'll be back recording probably next week and getting a new episode out to you guys. And I hope
Oh yeah.
everyone enjoyed the first episode of the No Bull podcast.
No bull, baby. Let's get it.
No Bull. Phil, have a good afternoon, buddy, and I'll be texting
Nolan,
you.
you too. I'll see you on the flip.
See you on the flip.